Good morning, everyone. Today's topic of discussion is glaucoma. Since the anatomical and pathological aspects of glaucoma have already been dealt with, today we'll continue with the definition of glaucoma, the classification of glaucoma, pathogenesis, and about the congenital and developmental glaucomas. So, what is the definition of glaucoma? So, glaucoma is not a single disease entity. It is a multifactorial disorder characterized by a progressive optic neuropathy. This is important. Progressive optic neuropathy, which results in a characteristic appearance of the optic disc and a specific pattern of irreversible visual field defect that is frequently but not always associated with a raised intraocular pressure. So, with this definition, we can conclude that the glaucoma is a triad of three things, that is raised intraocular pressure, optic disc changes, and visual field defects. So, glaucoma, as mentioned, it is not always associated with raised intraocular pressure. So, there can be ocular hypertension also, which is nothing but raised intraocular pressure without optic disc changes or visual field defects. Or there can be normal or low tension glaucoma, where the optic disc changes may be associated with the visual field defect with a normal or low intraocular pressure. So, coming to the clinico-etiological classification of glaucoma. So, glaucoma can be broadly classified into congenital or developmental glaucoma, primary adult glaucomas, and secondary glaucomas. Congenital or developmental glaucomas can be primary congenital glaucomas and developmental glaucomas. Primary adult glaucomas is nothing but we have primary open angle glaucoma, primary angle closure glaucoma, and primary mixed mechanism glaucoma. So, secondary glaucomas, as the name says, glaucoma is a result of other ocular manifestations, like it can be lens induced glaucoma. See, it can be phacomorphic glaucoma, phacolytic glaucoma, phacotopic glaucoma, and also phacotoxic glaucomas. Inflammatory glaucomas, which is usually seen in case of uveitis, steroid induced glaucoma. So, generally topical steroids will lead to glaucoma. And there is also neovascular glaucoma, which can be seen in diabetic retinopathy and also central retinal venous occlusion. So, what is the pathogenesis? As mentioned earlier, glaucoma is a progressive optic neuropathy. So, neuropathy is nothing but, optic neuropathy is nothing but damage to the optic nerve. So, this may be due to, and it is mainly due to the death of retinal ganglion cell, which is initiated when some pathological event blocks the transport of neurotrophins. Neurotrophins is nothing but a growth factor which is produced in the brain, and from the brain it usually reaches the retinal ganglion cells. Now, if it is blocked, the normal functions of the retinal ganglion cells are hampered. So, when the blockade of transport of neurotrophin occurs, it will initiate a damaging cascade. So, that retinal ganglion cells will lose their ability to maintain the normal function and undergo apoptosis. This apoptosis will trigger the apoptosis of adjacent cells also, with the loss of retinal nerve fiber layer. So, once the loss of nerve fibers extend beyond the normal physiological overlap of functional zone, the characteristic optic disc changes and visual field defects will develop. Coming to the etiological factors responsible for the block in the transport of neurotrophins. So, it can be primary insults like raised intraocular pressure, which will cause a mechanical stretch on the lamina cribrosa, leading to axonal deformation and ischemia by altering the capillary blood flow. As a result of this, these neurotrophins won't reach the retinal ganglionic cell layer. And we have pressure independent factors like vascular insufficiency. So, this will lead to decreased vascular perfusion of the optic nerve head. So, it can be present in the absence of raised intraocular pressure. So, it is usually associated with normotensive glaucoma. So, it includes failure of autoregulatory mechanism of blood flow. So, the retina and the optic nerve, they usually share a peculiar mechanism of autoregulation of blood flow with the rest of the central nervous system. Once this is compromised, it can lead to glaucoma without a raised intraocular pressure, like in normotensive glaucoma. And vasospasm, like certain vasospastic disorders like migraine, headache, and Raynaud's phenomenon is usually associated with normotensive glaucoma. So, they also cause decreased vascular perfusion to the optic disc head. And there can also be systemic hypotension, particularly in patients who take antihypertensive drugs in the night. So this will also lead to normotensive glaucoma. Then other factors like acute blood loss and abnormal coagulability profile, they are also associated with normotensive glaucoma. And certain secondary insults like glutamate, which is an excitatory neurotoxin, free radical, and nitric oxide, which are usually released when retinal ganglionic cells undergo apoptosis due to the primary insult. So even after these primary insults have been controlled, the secondary insult will lead to continued damage of the retinal ganglionic cells by apoptosis. So coming to the congenital or developmental glaucoma. Congenital glaucoma is a group of disorders in which abnormally high intraocular pressure results due to developmental anomalies of the angle of the anterior chamber. Developmental glaucomas is used to describe those disorders which manifest several years after birth. So, primary congenital or developmental glaucoma. In this, the high intraocular pressure due to the developmental anomaly of the anterior chamber will be present without any other ocular or systemic anomalies. So, it is of three types, that is newborn glaucoma, infantile glaucoma, and juvenile glaucoma. Newborn glaucoma is also called as true congenital glaucoma because it is present at birth. I mean, the raised intraocular pressure is present at birth during the intrauterine life. Infantile glaucoma is present from birth till 3 years. So both these types of glaucoma will lead to a raised intraocular pressure very early. So it will lead to increase in the size of the eyeball and low scleral rigidity, which will lead to a condition called as ophthalmos or bullseye. So this ophthalmos or bull eye, this disease manifests before the age of 3 years. So since there is retention of aqueous humor, it is also called as hydrophthalmos. So one clue to remember this condition is bilateral, blue, a baby boy. So 3 B's. 90% of these cases is sporadic and 10% of these cases have autosomal recessive inheritance. So the loci or the chromosomes linked in this condition are the 2p21, 1p36 or 14q24. Incidence, this can be found in 1 in 10,000 births. So this is a case of ophthalmos. So in case of juvenile glaucomas, it usually develops after the age of 3 years, but not before, not after adulthood, but usually occurs before adulthood, but after the age of 3 years. So juvenile glaucoma can also lead to primary open angle glaucoma between the age of 10 to 35 years. So next, coming to the clinical features of congenital glaucomas. So the most important clinical feature is a triad of lacrimation, photophobia and blepharospasm. Photophobia is the earliest feature, but it is non-specific to ophthalmos. So there will be lacrimation, which is the most common features. Along with that, there can be corneal edema. Corneal edema initially involves the corneal epithelium, but it will later involve the stromal layer of the cornea. This will lead to a corneal haziness, giving rise to a frosted glass appearance. So megalocornea, that is increase in the size of the cornea. So how is it if when the size of the cornea at birth is more than 13 mm, it is diagnostic of ophthalmos. So normally the size of the cornea at birth is 10 mm, but in these cases it will be more than 13 mm. Coming to the Harb striae. These are horizontal striations due to the rupture of the decimate membrane of the cornea. Then we also have a thin and blue sclera. So basically the sclera will become thin and appears blue due to the underlying uveal tissue. And there will be backward subluxation of the lens due to the stretching of the zonules. And also there will be a deep anterior chamber. So optic disc will show cupping and atrophy, and there will be a mild rise in intraocular pressure, and there will also be axial myopia due to increase in axial length of the eyeball, which also give rise to anisometropic amblyopia. So how do you evaluate this case? So mainstay of evaluation is the measurement of intraocular pressure by tonometry, and measurement of the corneal diameter, slit lamp examination, and ophthalmoscopy for optic disc evaluation, and gonioscopy for evaluation of the angle of the anterior chamber. So what can be the other differential diagnosis of congenital glaucoma? So the cloudy cornea can be seen in cases like unilateral cloudiness can be seen in Descemet's membrane rupture. It can, in case of forceps delivery, this can be seen. Bilateral cases of cloudy cornea can be seen in case of trauma, mucopolysaccharidosis, interstitial keratitis, and corneal endothelial dystrophy. So we also see a large cornea or megalocornea. It can be due to megalocornea, sclerocornea, or high myopia. Lacrimation can be seen in case of congenital nasolacrimal duct blockage, corneal abrasions and all. Photophobia may be due to keratitis or uveitis. Raised intraocular pressure may be due to retinoblastoma, retinopathy of prematurity, or traumatic glaucoma. Optic disc changes may be due to congenital anomalies of the disc like pitting, coloboma, hypoplasia, tilted disc, and a large physiologic cup. So coming to the treatment, surgery is the mainstay of treatment. We are not giving any drugs. However, IOP can be lowered before the surgery by using hyperosmotic agents, acetazolamide and beta blockers till surgery is taken up. But ultimately, surgery is the mainstay of treatment. So when the cornea is clear, we can do goniotomy. Goniotomy is nothing but opening the angle of the anterior chamber. When the cornea is hazy, we can do either trabeculotomy, that is opening in the trabecular meshwork near the Schlemm canal, or we can do trabeculectomy, that is resection of the trabecular meshwork to create a fistula between the anterior chamber and the episcleral space. This is known as filtration surgery. So we can also do combined trabeculotomy and trabeculectomy, which is a better approach. So coming to developmental glaucomas with associated ocular anomalies. So glaucoma associated with iridodysgenesis. So there can be glaucoma associated with aniridia, familial iris hypoplasia, congenital ectropion uvea, congenital microcornea, or congenital nanophthalmos. So glaucoma associated with iridocorneal dysgenesis. So there will be posterior embryotoxon, which is characterized by a prominent Schwalbe's line. So there will be opacities in the posterior surface of the cornea. And there is something called Axenfeld-Rieger syndrome. So it is a spectrum of many anomalies like Axenfeld anomaly, which is characterized by posterior embryotoxon with attachment of strands of peripheral iris tissue. And we have Rieger anomaly. It is characterized by posterior embryotoxon, iris stromal hypoplasia, ectropion uveal correctopia, and full thickness iris defect. And we have combined Axenfeld-Rieger syndrome. Features of both these syndromes, and we have Peters anomaly, which is characterized by central corneal opacity with or without iridocorneal or lenticulocorneal adhesions. Then we have developmental glaucoma with systemic anomalies. So glaucomas can also be associated with certain chromosomal disorders such as trisomy 13, 15, trisomy 18, which is nothing but Edwards syndrome, trisomy 21, which is Down syndrome, and also Turner syndrome. And glaucoma can also be associated with ectopia lentis syndrome. Ectopia lentis syndromes include Marfan syndrome or Weil-Marchesani syndrome, and even homocystinuria. And then glaucoma associated with phacomatosis. It is seen in Sturge-Weber syndrome and von Recklinghausen neurofibromatosis. And glaucoma can also be associated with certain metabolic syndromes such as Lowe syndrome, which is nothing but oculocerebrorenal syndrome, Hurler syndrome, which is a kind of mucopolysaccharidosis, and Zellweger syndrome, which is hepatocerebrorenal syndrome. Thank you.